Hi, in today's lecture, we will be discussing about the cardiovascular system. So the cardiovascular system is the system that's responsible for the transport of blood, nutrients, wastes, dissolved gases to and from the tissues. So it includes the heart, the blood vessels, and the blood. So the cardiovascular system also works closely together with the respiratory system to deliver the oxygen and to remove carbon dioxide from the cells in the body. Now let's look at the most prominent organ of the cardiovascular system, which is the heart. Simply put, the heart is a pump. To be more detailed, so the heart is a 3-layered, 4-chambered, 2-cycle organ. So it's a pretty much a mouthful, but let's look at it closely. So the heart is in the thoracic cavity, which is basically the center of the thoracic cavity in the mediastinum. So it is enclosed in what you call a pericardium, which is a type of a serous membrane that secretes a lubricating fluid that surrounds the heart. So this lubricating fluid allows it to beat without causing damage to itself, because again, as a pump, it's continuously moving. So to prevent frictions on the surrounding tissue, so you must have a proper lubrication. So we call the heart as a 3-layered organ because it has, of course, 3 layers: the epicardium, the myocardium, and the endocardium. So simply put, we have the outer layer, myocardium, which is basically myo, which means muscle. It is the layer of cardiac muscle, which is basically the one that causes the heart to beat. And the endocardium, the inner layer of the heart. So looking at the layers of the heart, so you have your this is your pericardium. Basically, it's surrounded by a pericardium, the pericardium, and you have your pericardial cavity where the lubricating fluid is, and then you have the epicardium, and then this is your myocardium, and then the endo and epicardium are both thin layers. So we have the thicker myocardium layer. So basically, that's the heart tissue, your layers of your heart. So we also said that it's a 4-chambered organ. So of course it has 4 chambers. We have 2 ventricles and 2 atria. So we have the left ventricle that pushes blood throughout the body and has the thickest layer of myocardium because it must have the greatest amount of pressure or the greatest push, because it is the one responsible for circulating the blood throughout the body. So the right ventricle is less muscular because unlike the left ventricle, which must push the blood to the rest of the body, so the target of the right ventricle is just to push the blood to the nearby lungs. So we have separation by the interventricular septum. And then we have the 2 atria. Atria are smaller, thin-walled chambers that sit on top of a thick-walled muscular ventricles. So we have the left and right. So they also serve as holding tanks for blood after it returns from the body or lungs. So they receive the blood from the large veins and then direct them to the ventricle. So we also have the interatrial septum dividing them. So looking at them, this is the anterior external view, looking at the surface features. So color coding, the color here represents the blood, the type of blood that flows. So when I talk about the type of blood, it's about oxygen-rich or oxygen-poor blood. So blue color represents the oxygen-poor blood, and the red color is the oxygen-rich blood. So as you can see here, we have your the veins and the arteries. By the way, the veins are the blood vessels that delivers blood to the heart, whereas the arteries are the blood vessels that delivers blood away from the heart. So we have the superior and anterior vena cava here, and then we have the pulmonary artery. So it's color blue because it delivers, this is the oxygen poor blood, it delivers the oxygen poor blood to the lungs. And then you have the red left and right pulmonary veins from the back, because again the heart is at the front of your lungs. So here the pulmonary veins are connected to the back, because again the lungs are at the back of the heart. So you have red color because it's now oxygen rich, being loaded with oxygen from the lungs. And then you have the aorta, again a bright red color, to deliver the oxygen rich blood to the rest of the body. So this is the interior view. So the blue color, the blue shading represents oxygen poor blood. So basically the part here delivers oxygen poor blood, or rather holds oxygen poor blood, and this one is the oxygen rich blood. So we have valves that separate your chambers. The atrium and the ventricles are separated by the valves. We have the tricuspid and the bicuspid, and then between the veins and your between the arteries and your ventricles, you have your another type of valve. So we have the pulmonary and your aortic valve. Now, why do we have valves? Valves allow blood to hold in a chamber and to pass from one chamber to the next when open. So basically, the blood, the valve, prevents, or rather ensures that the blood flows in the correct way. So, because if you're looking at this one, for example, so when the between the aorta and your ventricles, if your ventricles contract, without the valve, your blood will flow on both the artery and the pulmonary trunk, or which is the pulmonary artery. So it will instead of the flow of blood from the atria to the ventricle then out into the artery, if there is no valve here, it will flow from this to the ventricle back to the atrium. So that will that will cause a problem. So you have the valve that ensures that the blood will flow on the correct passageway. So we have arterioventricular valves between the atria and the ventricles. So we have cusp, or basically the flaps, that are composed of dense irregular tissue and attached to papillary muscles by chordae tendineae, or the so-called heartstrings. So if you remember from Harry Potter, we have the dragon heartstrings. So it's basically talking about the chordae tendineae in the heart. So the closure of the arterioventricular valves create the S1 wave, or the lub sound. So if in the heartbeat it's the lub-dub, it's the lub sound. The closing of these valves contain the lub sound. So we have your tricuspid valve, with its name tri. So we have 3 cusps, and the bicuspid valve has, of course, 2 cusps, or 2 flaps. So the bicuspid, if you look at some books, it will also tell you that it's called also the mitral valve. But anyway, we have also, aside from the arterioventricular valves, you also have the semilunar valves. Semilunar valves are found between ventricles and arteries this time. So it's between the ventricles and the blood vessel, which are the arteries. So they open when pressure generated when ventricles contract. So pulmonary valve is found between the right ventricle and the pulmonary trunk. So aortic valve is found between the left ventricular and aorta. So the closure of these valves creates this S2, or the dub sound. So lub-dub, lub-dub. So the lub is for the arterioventricular valves, and we have the dub sound for the semilunar valve. So here is your valves. So this is opened, the tricuspid and the bicuspid valve. So we call it bi and tri again because you have your flaps. So we have bicuspid, 2 flaps, tricuspid, basically 3. And then you have your semilunar valves here. Now, if you notice, this is the chordae tendineae. So we have these are the heartstrings. Okay, that keeps them that helps in keeping them open. So basically, the heartstrings that attach those cusps to the papillary muscles. So these are the heartstrings. So the semilunar valves do not have that. Okay, so in the next video, in the next part of this lecture, we'll discuss about the blood flow, the flow of the blood through the heart.